Hey, what's up everybody? This is Osterberg501 and today I want to do my first theory crafting build for Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. And the build we're going to be looking at today is going to be the build I'm going to be personally using when the game comes out. And this is going to have Graveborn as my main class and Spellshot as my secondary class. And also, I'll have this skill calculator linked in the description. Someone in the community made this. It's incredibly helpful. And I can also link the put together build. So if you guys want to take the link and copy it somewhere, if you want to use the exact same build when the game comes out, you can do that very easily. And I want to go over this as if you were leveling up, because this is going to be more focused as a build that you use while leveling up, not necessarily an end game focused build, because builds are going to change so much once we learn what items there are, what effects we can get. But I think this will be a really good build for leveling up and for starting your end game gearing. So since we're starting with Graveborn, that's all we're going to have until level 25. And our class feat is our Demi-Lich Companion. The Fate Maker is accompanied by a floating Demi-Lich Companion that targets enemies at range and deals dark magic damage. Whenever the Fate Maker casts a spell, the Demi-Lich will cast Hellish Blast, creating a homing projectile of the spell's elemental type, dealing damage to nearby enemies on impact. Any increases to the Fate Maker's damage also applies to their companions. So a pretty cool companion and companion effect. It just shoots off different spells after you do. And the ability I'm going to be using while leveling up is Dire Sacrifice. The Fate Maker sacrifice a portion of their health to deal dark magic ability damage and apply dark magic status effects to all nearby enemies. Dire Sacrifice also deals bonus damage based on the amount of sacrificed health. So you sacrifice 40% of your current health. Now this is important because if you're 100%, you're sacrificing 40% of your total health. But if you're at 20%, you're only going to sacrifice 40% of that. So if you're low, you're not going to sacrifice a ton. If you're max health, you're going to lose a lot of health, but deal a ton of damage. And since it's dark magic ability damage, you're also going to be healing off of that as well. And the bonus damage is 150% of your sacrificed health, and it's going to have a 25-second cooldown. So next up, we have our passives, and I'm going to be putting in these points as I would be doing it while leveling up in the game. And you could definitely change it up a little bit while leveling up to test out different stuff. Like I mentioned, it's a leveling build. Some stuff may end up not being as strong when the game comes out and when going through testing, so you can definitely change up a little bit and test out some different stuff. But first 5 points, we're going to be putting in an Essence Drain. It's a kill skill plus 5% spell cooldown rate per level. Duration is 12 seconds. And when leveling up and not on a boss fight, you'll probably be able to have this up 100% of the time because it has a long duration. So very, very strong. And this build is going to be pretty heavily focused on spells. And if you don't know, spells are what are replacing your grenade mods from other games, but they're going to be much more used and essentially a smaller version of an action skill. Then we're going into Sanguine Sacrament. Whenever the Fate Maker casts a spell, they regenerate 10% health over 2 seconds per level. So this is going to be 30% of their health over 2 seconds. So this is absolutely massive, and having a spell build, having already spell cooldown rate reductions, you're going to be healing so much. And also mix this in with you dealing dark ability damage. With your action skill, you're going to have so much self-healing. Then we're going to be putting 2 points into Mortal Vessel. This gives us maximum health increase and dark magic efficiency increase. So we're going to put 2 points into this so we can get to our next row. Then we're going to be getting Dread Covenant. 35% of damage taken by the Fate Maker is redirected to their Demi-Lich. When the Fate Maker reaches 1 health, they immediately restore 75% of their maximum health, sacrificing the Demi-Lich. 120-second cooldown. Now this is going to be massive. You're going to take a lot less damage, and really the main reason we're getting this is for the life-saving effect. That's going to be massive when playing solo. If you're going to be playing with a group the whole time, this is going to be much less needed, and you could potentially put this point into somewhere else. Then we're going to be going Dark Hydra. It's a kill skill, chance to summon a Dark Hydra companion dealing dark magic ability damage to nearby enemies for a duration. A 60% chance to summon it. Max Dark Hydra is 1 per level, duration 10 seconds. So we're going to put 3 points into this so we can have 3 Dark Hydras out at a time. Every kill has a 60% chance to spawn one, and they all last 10 seconds. And these are just going to be these little Hydra companions that pop out and just deal a bunch of AoE damage around them. Then we're going to be putting another point up into Mortal Vessel. also for more maximum health and dark magic efficiency. Then we're going to be getting punishment. When the Demi-Lich casts Hellish Blast, there's a chance it will be cast again after a brief delay, and this is a 20% chance. Now, I'm not sure if this can proc off of itself, but if it can proc off itself, it's even going to be more ridiculous, because even with a 20% chance, there's still a chance that it can just proc back to back to back, which could be really cool. Then we're putting 3 points into Ascension, a kill skill, plus 2% maximum health and spell damage per level per stack. Duration is 30 seconds and max 10 stacks. So if you're not in a boss fight, or even a boss fight with a lot of adds, you're going to be able to keep this up most of the time. And 3 points into this is 6% of health and spell damage per stack. So you can get up to 60% increased maximum health and spell damage. And mixing this with our Dire Sacrifice at max health is going to make our Dire Sacrifice just hit like an absolute truck. Then we're going to go up and put another point into Mortal Vessel, get more maximum health and dark magic efficiency. Then we're going to be going into Blast Gas. Whenever the Fate Maker deals spell damage, there is a chance they will create an elemental explosion, dealing ability damage of the spell's elemental type to nearby enemies. This cannot crit, and it has a 20% chance to do this, and its ability damage is 10% per level. So we put 5 points into this, still has a 20% chance, so it's going to deal 50% ability damage. So this is just potentially a ton of additional damage, and it's an AoE effect that also follows the elements of that specific spell. Then we're going to be getting Lord of Edges. The Fate Maker gains increased damage dealt and damage reduction the lower their health. Damage dealt is plus 25%, and damage reduction is plus 25% as well. And this is only 1 point. That's a big reason I'm getting it, and it can potentially be pretty massive buffs if we're lower on health, because with Dark Sacrifice, we're going to be sacrificing a big chunk of our health. We do have a ton of healing, so also while taking damage, we'll be healing a ton, but we will definitely be getting some use out of this, as it will be a build that will constantly be having a balance of taking damage, healing it up, taking more damage, healing it up. And then we have our capstone passive, Morheim's Blessing. Casting a spell automatically activates all of the Fate Maker's kill skills. So this is absolutely massive. And like I mentioned, this is going to be a spell focused build. So getting a pretty strong spell early on is going to massively increase the power of this build. And this capstone will affect our essence drain. So we'll have this up 100% of the time. So this will just make our spells have a lower cooldown. Then we also have Dark Hydras, so we can summon Hydras anytime we cast a spell, even if it doesn't kill. We have Ascension, so we're getting more max health and spell damage every spell cast, even if it doesn't kill. And also, this means all of our kill skills become incredibly important for boss fights as well, even if it's just on a boss, because now we can proc all of our kill skills very consistently without actually killing anything. So this is going to be a ridiculous power jump. Now, this does use up 27 out of our 40 points, and at level 25, we get our secondary class. So at that point, we'll be taking Spellshot, and Spellshot's class feat is Spell Weaving. Casting a spell or reloading a weapon grants a Spellshot a stack of Spell Weaving, increasing spell damage. Spell Weaving stacks automatically decay after a few seconds. Casting a repeating spell has a chance to award additional Spell Weaving stacks with each repeating cast. So having a repeating cast spell is going to be pretty strong for this class feat. And this is also synergizing with a lot of the points we already put in. So once we hit 25, get our secondary class, we're going to have a pretty big power jump automatically. And now you will also kind of have a choice, because I'm not sure how strong this is going to be either way, but with our spell shot, we now have a chance to take Ambihextrous. So the spell shot may equip the spell into their action skill slot. Whenever the spell shot presses the action skill button, they cast that spell. So if we take this instead of Dark Sacrifice, when we get the spell shot, we remove our action skill, and now we have 2 spells. And like we went over, a ton of our passive points are already synergizing massively with spells. And I guess depending on the different spells you have, especially while leveling up, it may be better to keep Dark Sacrifice, or it may be much better to get a second spell. You'll just have to test that out for yourself when leveling up. So then we're going to be putting some points into our spell shot skill tree. Now for the spell shot, there's not specifics on the passives yet. The website is a work in progress, so this isn't going to have the specific numbers like the Graveborn did, but that's not too big of a deal, and you'll be able to see the specifics when the game comes out. So first off, we have Spell Sniper, gained increased spell critical hit chance. So again, we're focused on our spells. Having increased critical chance is going to be just a massive damage increase. Then we're going to be putting points into Font of Mana, gain increased spell cooldown rate, gain increased action skill cooldown rate, and we're going to be putting 5 points in this. So again, just more and more spells. And we're also going to be having spell cooldown rate plus 25% up pretty much all of the time once we get our capstone. So getting more of it is going to be crazy. I'm curious to see how much this actually is. And I'm also curious how this is going to work if, because we have Ambihextrous, is that going to make both these spells just go off of spell cooldown rate, or if the spell that takes over the action skill slot, if that will go off of the action skill cooldown rate. I'm assuming they're both going to be considered full spells, so they're both just going to be scaled off of the spell cooldown rate and all of your spell stats. Then we're going to be going into Mage Armor. Whenever the Fate Maker gains a stack of the Spell Weaving, they restore a portion of their ward. And Spell Weaving we get off of casting spells or reloading, but we're going to be a machine gun of spells. So we're going to constantly be regenerating ward with every single spell cast. And ward is just the shielding of Wonderlands. Then we're going to be getting Glass Cannon. The Fate Maker's ward no longer automatically recharges, but they gain drastically increased spell damage. So this is going to be a pretty crazy change to the build. Now we already have a ton of different healing. With us, every time we cast a spell, we gain a massive amount of healing for our health bar. And then every time we get a spell weaving stack, we're going to be getting a portion of our ward back. And this will still work, but our ward just no longer automatically regenerate. Like we just went over, I think we're going to be so tanky and have so much regeneration effects anyway. I don't think this is going to be a big deal, and we're going to be hitting so much harder with our spells. And then the last point, I was just going to be putting into just warming up. So you gain increased fire rate for every spell weaving stack. And since we're going to be casting so many spells, we're going to be having a ton of spell weaving stacks. So depending on how much fire rate this actually is, and depending on how much of the time we're just going to be focused on casting spells, this may not be worth it, and you may want to take this point out and go put it into the last rank of Mortal Vessel. This can definitely be a really good alternative, just getting more max health and more dark magic efficiency. Because if it turns out that with how much spell cooldown rate we have and having 2 spells, that we're just able to constantly launch off spells and we're not shooting that much, this would be completely worthless. So that's pretty much the entirety of my main leveling build I'm going to be using when the game is released. This is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing Graveborn first, Spellshot second, and this is probably the exact path of passives I'm going to be taking and trying out this build. And like I mentioned, this is for leveling, but I think this will also be very good for starting your gearing into the end game. I think it has a ton of sustain, has a ton of synergies, has a ton of damage increases. So I think this will very much hold you over until you start getting some items, changing up your build a little bit to synergize with those items and starting to create your end game build. And I'll have a link for this in the description and the pinned comments, and the link will have all the points and everything put in, so you can come see all the buffs down here, and you can just save this link if you're going to want to use this exact same build as well. But that's all I want to go over, so subscribe if you want to see more Wonderlands or other videos. Leave a like if you liked the video. Leave a comment down below what you guys think about this leveling build, and thanks for watching.